fact, the cannabis industry is here to stay in New Jersey. What does this mean for you? Well, if you're looking to invest or open a business in the cannabis industry but don't know where to turn to, well, have no fear. With over 12 years of experience in the cannabis sector and one of the original New Jersey cannabis pioneers, I, Dr. David Kunick at UCS Advisors, can help you navigate the cannabis industry and guide you through the investment process. To learn more, head to ucsadvisor.com, where we can help you achieve your greatness.
Murphy, Schiller & Wilkes is formed with a simple purpose in mind, serving as the one-stop shop for the legal needs of developers, lenders, and others in the commercial real estate industry. Based in Newark, the firm's attorneys represent clients in the most complex real estate transactions and land development proceedings, as well as property taxation, environmental and real estate litigation matters, and in the acquisition, sale, and leasing of all real estate asset types throughout the country. Their attorneys have broad private and public sector experience coming from top national law firms and high-level governmental positions. Through the development of individualized client-focused strategies, their team works tirelessly to create a blueprint for success and advance their clients' interests in every matter. To learn more, head to murphyllp.com or give them a call at 973-877-6984.
Driving on this road feels like forever.
All right, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Greetings from the Garden State. I'm your host, Mike Ham. We are here in Montclair, New Jersey at Silverstream Studios. Once again, our friends here with Nick LePore of Burger Buff. Nick, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
It's good to have you. So I've had one of your burgers before, or at least a couple bites. That's as much as I got.
Gotcha.
Phenomenal.
Thank you.
And I just love the whole, I love the whole concept. I think it's very cool. Different than a lot of the places like we've had on the show before. But before we kind of get into that, we're going to learn a little bit about you. Actually, no, let's do this. Let's do a broad definition of what Burger Buff is, and then we'll learn about you and why you do that.
Gotcha. So Burger Buff is a personal brand. So I am Burger Buff. It's not like a big company or team of people. I definitely have people that help me at certain events, but Burger Buff is a pop-up burger shop, and it is me, and I travel the world cooking and eating burgers and giving my opinion on burgers.
Okay, so let's break it down a little bit.
Yeah.
Burger, buff. So where does the buff come in?
I was a competitive bodybuilder for 10 plus years, so kind of like double meaning. Buff can mean like you're an expert on a subject.
Oh, okay. I didn't even think about that. Yeah.
Yeah, also it can mean you're in shape or muscular, so
yeah.
Definitely not as muscular as I once was, but...
well, who is, you know?
Yeah.
It's probably the most muscular I've ever been, which says a lot with how much I've worked out in my life, but no, that's cool. So, what made you get into that, bodybuilding and all that kind of stuff?
Played basketball all my life, actually, but after high school, Are
you a Jersey guy?
I am a Jersey guy.
Born and raised?
Yep, lived here my whole life.
All right, good. You can continue.
After basketball, I kind of needed something to put my energy and time into, and just started lifting weights because I graduated high school like 105 pounds. So
okay.
I was always really short and really skinny. Still short, but I couldn't grow taller, so I tried to grow wider.
Right. Yeah.
But so that's why I just started lifting and got bigger, and someone suggested I try competing at a local gym, and kind of took off from there. So.
Cool. So what was that experience like going through that whole, because my dad, fun fact, I'll show you a picture after, used to be a bodybuilder.
Nice.
And went to his first ever show. And he was a big dude.
Yeah.
And he went on stage the first time, and then he was like, I'm done, because I can't compete with these guys. And then he went into powerlifting and stuff. So maybe take me through your experience kind of going through that whole process.
Yeah, it's definitely changed over the years, the bodybuilding scene. Back when I started, I sound like an old guy now. Back in my day, I used to be able to bench this much. But it has changed, especially with social media and everything. It wasn't as common to compete. Competing's a lot more popular now, even with girls, and all different types of people. So it's like back then it was kind of like this weird thing, like you're putting this tanning stuff on, you're wearing these little posing trunks. But I always liked just the training aspect of it, and the competing was kind of just the way to showcase the finished product.
Right. Like working towards something.
Exactly. Yeah. I didn't love like the actual getting on stage part, but that was just kind of the way to compete.
Right.
But the training and seeing your body change every week leading up to a show, that's what I really enjoyed, because you put in the reps, you put in the days of dieting, and then you see the changes, and you are controlling, in most cases, you control the finished product, right?
Yeah.
The aspects I didn't really love about it is, like, even if you do everything right, at the end of the day, it's still a subjective sport, right? So they're not judging you on your strength or anything. It's all looks. You just have to look strong, look lean. And I did fairly well. Did well in the regional and local level. Competed at a national level a few times down in Florida. And had some success with like sponsorships and stuff like that. I got to see the world, which kind of led into the burger thing, which I'm sure we'll get to. But
maybe.
Yeah. So is this a bodybuilding podcast?
Yeah. Actually, you can't tell.
So yeah, I definitely gained a lot from it, and that's kind of what I do with a lot of things. Is like, even if it's not something that I'm going to be doing the rest of my life, if you gain a lot of experience and learn from everything and kind of use that into the next venture, I think that's important.
Yeah, for sure. No, I love that. And I think it also just kind of like knowing you very minimally, like a few conversations that we've actually had, and then kind of just knowing how at least from what I see on social media and like all the stuff that you do, it seems like the business is going well. And I think stuff like that, when you're, working in something like that, the work ethic is obviously a big thing. So to put the time and the energy and the training into doing something like that, and then to bring that back into something else, it makes sense. It translates, for sure.
So many different things that translate from one thing to another, whether it's fitness or content creation or cooking and all that stuff. They all have like these little similarities.
Yeah. All right, so let's get into more of on the cooking side. So prior to starting Burger Buff, did you have any type of culinary background?
No, definitely not any formal like training or anything, but I did grow up working in pizzerias and restaurants. So even at like 12, 13, 14, I was cleaning tables, bussing tables, got into delivering pizza, waiting on tables, and kind of saw like all aspects of a restaurant / pizzeria from like 13 to 18.
Okay.
So I have that, but definitely no like formal cooking. My mom always cooked at home, so kind of picked up stuff from her. Typical Italian Sunday dinners and all that stuff. So, and then getting into bodybuilding, I had to learn how to cook meals as well, because I couldn't eat pasta every day. So
that makes I think that would make it tough living in like an Italian household. And then, eating pasta all the time, and then also trying to stay as lean as possible and like all that kind of stuff.
Right.
So at what point, how long ago did you actually start Burger Buff?
So I started like the page and the brand itself probably about 5 or 6 years ago. Okay. But the early days was kind of just me eating burgers and giving my opinion on burgers. And
so like almost like a review type thing?
Yeah. But I always made sure to kind of make it as like, I was just kind of documenting and giving my opinion, not saying like I'm an authority on the subject, which I kind of hate when people do that, especially when they first get into something. So it's kind of just like, hey, this is where I'm eating today, this is what I thought of it, and in a respectful way, obviously.
Yeah, okay. And so in those early, sorry, I don't know why I'm basically like dying. In those early days, when you start doing like the content and putting stuff together, at what point do you say to yourself like, hey, I could make a burger, and then start actually cooking them? Right.
So I was definitely cooking burgers at home once in a while, because as a bodybuilder, my cheat meal was always a burger.
Okay.
And if I didn't feel like going out or I wanted a burger a certain way, I would just cook it at home.
Yeah.
And then once I got more into the Burger Buff brand, in 2019, I ate a burger every single day for a year.
Okay. All right.
So part of that was I didn't go out to eat every day. So if I didn't go out to eat, I still had to eat a burger. So I would cook one at home. So I got a lot of experience cooking at home and posting those burgers. And then people became interested in the burgers I was cooking at home as well. So.
Gotcha. All right, cool. So I think that's a perfect point to take our first break. So we learned a little bit about you, and we take it all the way up to, because I have a lot of questions about what goes into the burger and everything that you do now.
Sure.
But we're going to do that in our second segment. So this is the Greetings from the Garden State podcast. I'm Mike Ham. We're here with Nick LePore of Burger Buff in Montclair, New Jersey at Silverstream Studios. We'll be right back.
My name is Chris, founder of FLK Method, where being fit does not feel out of reach. In fact, you're going to have fun when you show up for class. FLK also offers access to a supportive community, monthly partner challenges, and instructors who care. Not to mention our amazing in-person events, more than 20 styles of workouts, and on-demand channels designed specifically for your goals. Head to fitlikechrys.com, that's FITLIKEKRYS.com to learn more or to get started for just $25. Give yourself a chance to feel your best because that is exactly what you deserve.
All right, we're back for segment 2 of this episode of Greetings from the Garden State. I'm Mike Ham. We're here in Montclair, New Jersey at Silverstream Studios with Nick LePore of Burger Buff. So in the first segment, we learned a little bit about you, your background, and kind of basically leading up to this affinity with burgers. So we talked a little bit about how, like 2019, I think you said you ate a burger every day, but obviously wasn't eating out every day and was making your own. So over the course of that time period, I would imagine you made a couple burgers. So were you almost like unknowingly trying to hone in the recipe for what you do now? Does that kind of make sense, I guess?
Yeah, I think that was part of it. That definitely, it wasn't my sole intention to, like, I didn't even plan on selling a burger at that point. I was just kind of forming my own tastes and opinions on what I liked, and I was eating out so much, so I would say, oh, I like this aspect of this burger, but maybe not this aspect of that burger. So the burger a day thing kind of made me hone a lot of different skills in at once, because it made me create content every day, whether it was pictures, videos, copy, audio, whatever it may be. And then I also had to figure out how to market that, how to post it, when to post it, and taking pictures in all different scenarios, learning how to take pictures, learning how to cook burgers. So I didn't know it at the time, but it was kind of creating all these skill sets that would later help me down the road.
Right. Isn't that crazy sometimes? Because like it's almost similar on my end, where it's like I've been doing stuff like this for like the last 2 or 3 years, and almost, I get to this point, and like we were just talking about off mic, like now I have all these skills that I didn't even know that I have been developing, and it's making me money, and it's fantastic.
Right.
It's crazy. But all right, so at what point in that process, so you kind of like you hone it in and you decide that you're going to go out and you're going to start cooking burgers for people. What was the first time that you did that?
Right. So after the 2019 year, I finished that whole thing. I picked up a bunch of like sponsorships during that time, got a lot of exposure just because it was some guy who was in shape eating a burger every day.
Yeah.
Local publications, meat purveyors, bun companies, sauce companies, started working with brands and stuff like that. But I was doing all this stuff on the road, working from local coffee shops, and a local coffee shop in Point Pleasant, New Jersey called Divvy Tree. They were like, hey, we see you cook burgers. We see like a lot of people want to try them. The kitchen's closed here from 5 p.m. on. They're like, if you ever want to use it for a couple hours, you're more than welcome to, right? And that was where it kind of popped into my head, like, that it's a possibility. But still, like, at that time, pop-ups weren't really popular. Like, the word pop-up now is used so much, especially through the pandemic and everything. But back then, it was more like I picked up on it through clothing stores. They would do pop-up shops, like if they were an online store, but they wanted to do like a month-long pop-up shop, right? So that was the first time. It was a local coffee shop in Point Pleasant, early 2020, before the pandemic. I just said I'm going to be here from 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. Cooking this one burger one way. I thought maybe like 30 people would show up. 5 o'clock comes, I look up, there's about 100 people outside, and I got crushed. But I learned a lot, and I think it was important to kind of just throw myself in the fire and like figure it out.
Yeah, for sure. So what were so I kind of know a little bit about the process of how it works now. But what were some things after that first time? Because, I mean, it makes it easier on you to say you're making one burger one way If you like it, great. If you don't, I don't care because this is what I make. What were some other things that maybe you have implemented now after that first time to make it easier, I guess, on you?
Yeah. Well, I implemented a ticket system, one, because it would not create lines, and the pandemic hit at that point, and I was like, how can I continue doing this and not have 100 people standing outside or standing inside? So I do pick up time slots for the most part at my pop-up, so I know exactly who's coming at what time for how many burgers, and that's all set up ahead of time. That's how I sell my tickets. So that was huge for me because I'm not going to cook the most burgers the way I do it, and I'm not looking to cook the most burgers or sell the most burgers, but I want my burger to consistently come out the same every time.
Right.
And I know from working with so many chefs and restaurants that it's possible, but it's very hard as you scale up to continue to keep that consistency in taste and look. And I cook every burger myself. I'll have helpers with me for bigger events, but I still cook every burger, smash every burger.
Right.
So yeah, definitely implementing that ticket system and just learning rep after rep, different things with grills and wind and weather and all that stuff.
Yeah, for sure. So you mentioned that you cook every burger yourself and that you said you smash every burger yourself. So it is a smash burger.
Yes.
Can you describe the burger without obviously giving away, the secrets? Describe like what the burger is, so if people have never tried one before, they know like kind of what it's all about.
Right. Yeah, I try to be as transparent as possible with it. I even teach a smash burger class now, which again I never planned on doing, but people wanted to learn how to make it. So I'm very open about it. I don't think giving away like your ingredients or your techniques is a bad thing. I want to give out as much information as possible. So it's very simple. I preface that ahead of time. It's more about the execution of it and the quality of the ingredients. Potato roll, bun, 2 dry-aged beef patties, 2 3-ounce dry-aged beef patties, a lot of fat in them. It's a 70-30 mix.
Okay.
And yellow American cheese and special sauce. I call it buff sauce or burger buff sauce. So it's meat, cheese, bun, sauce is the ingredients.
So
and salt.
As simple as possible.
Yeah, but it's more, like I said, it's more about the execution of it and knowing how, depending on how you want it to come out, how to execute it. And I have a specific way I want it to look and taste and feel. And a lot of those things aren't important to a lot of people. At the end of the day, it's just a cheeseburger, right? So it's like, I'm all about nerding out on stuff if you want to, or doing it sloppy and greasy and however you want to eat it. So, but yeah, that's the gist of it, is like really high quality meat, but then in a like fast foods, casual thin patty type burger.
Right. So then also like the cooking surface that you use, and I've seen you post about that before. I think you just got a new one recently.
Yes.
Yeah. So can you take us through like that and why you picked that particular type of cooker, I guess, or grill? I guess that's a better word.
Yeah, I definitely have like a specific grill that I like to use, but because I travel so much now to like other states, I don't always use that grill, but ideally I would use that. If I could drive with it, I'll bring it. If I'm flying, obviously I can't fly with it, but I'll try to source.
Hard to check.
Source something similar wherever I go. But it's a LA Taco Carts is the name of the brand. It's an awesome company out in LA. They make flat top grills and they make fryers and other stuff. But I started off on like different flat top grills and tried so many different kinds and really found like this one to be what I need for my style. A really hard like sear on the patty with like crispy edges, but still like keeping that juicy center. And it's very durable, and especially if it's windy, it can hold up to like different weather and stuff like that. So I always tell people like tools are important, but you have to master the basics and master the craft with whatever tools you have at that time, and then you grow into what you like and what you need. But I was throwing a crappy flat top grill in the back of my Nissan Sentra for the first few pop-ups, right? Just to figure it out and get it done, and then you slowly build up. I think people are so focused on having the best equipment right in the beginning.
Yeah, you can't do that.
And it's same thing with cameras and working out and every field. Everyone's like, oh, I need this squat belt, or I need these squat shoes, or I need this Beats headphones. It's like
but just like I
but
think
they can't do a squat, right?
So well, I think people just use that as an excuse to kind of like, because they think that they want something, but they're not like, they want to make sure that everything's perfect right out of the gate because they think that that's going to equal success.
Right.
But like in certain, like when I started the show, I didn't even have a camera. I would use like my laptop and put a webcam on it and record it on Zoom because I didn't have enough money to buy an actual camera.
Yeah.
And so it's almost like building the plane while you fly it to a certain degree.
Yep.
And then you just figure it out and you get good at doing it like the dirtiest way possible.
Yep.
But then as you progress and you get better at it, and then you get easier equipment to work with, and it's like now you're crushing it because you have gone through like the harder points of that
Exactly.
Journey, I guess.
Yeah, perfectly said. I agree 100%.
So the other thing that I'm curious about is we're talking about how this has taken you all over the world. Like I think you were just in London recently. Where else have you gone?
Recent trips, I do a lot in Florida, especially as it gets colder here.
Yeah,
I was in Denver. I was in Des Moines, Iowa. I was in Seattle. So yeah, I was a lot of different states and cities. Not always cooking my burgers. It could be for a variety of reasons, but yeah, I'm trying to do a pop-up everywhere eventually.
Yeah, no, that's cool. So one of the things that I think is interesting about that is like, so you're going to these places and cooking burgers more often than not, I guess, because it is your business. So obviously, I would imagine that when you're doing stuff local, like in Jersey, it's going to make it easier to keep that consistency of your product across those pop-ups and the things that you do. But when you start going to Des Moines, Iowa, or you start going to Denver or Florida, like how do you make sure that the consistency of your product that you were talking about before, and that's what's important to you, continues because you're cooking on most likely a different surface and using, I guess, similar ingredients, but also different because they're not from like your guy or whatever.
Right. Yeah, that's part of why I try to keep the burger so simple, is so I can source the stuff I use no matter where I go.
Yeah.
But a lot of it is like pre-planning. Like people often wonder what I'm doing like when I'm not cooking, but like the logistics of cooking across the country, there's a lot of planning that goes into that, right? So oftentimes I'll even go out to that city a few months ahead of time, and to source ingredients, I'll make sure I can find a butcher that uses a local farm that can do my blend. The cheese is easy. Land O'Lakes cheese, you can kind of get that anywhere.
Yeah.
Potato roll is easy. You can kind of get that anywhere, or they'll ship it to me if I need it. The sauce I make myself, so if I don't bring it with me, I'll just make it while I'm out there. And that's it. So it's like salt. I use the same salt every time, but it's easy to find. So
Yeah.
But yeah, the pre-trip going out there is just as important, because while I'm out there, I'm building a demand for the burger. I'm getting my name out there. People think I just show up and I sell out, and it's like there was a whole pre-promotion of me going out there, going to local burger shops, going to local coffee shops, reviewing burgers, networking with people, going to local gyms while I'm out there, posting stuff, and they're like, oh, who's this Burger Buff guy?
Yeah.
And then businesses see that, and they're like, oh, come do a pop-up here, right? We like what you do, right?
Right.
So it's like the trips ahead of time and the months leading up to a ticket drop is what makes it sell out. People think you could just show up to a new city and expect people to buy what you have, and it's like, why? Who are you?
Yeah,
it's
right.
just a burger. Like,
Yeah, exactly.
So,
cheeseburger? Yeah. Oh, yeah, I can get that anywhere.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's one of the things that I really focused on, is provide a ton of value and content, entertainment, educational stuff to people ahead of time, and then when it's time to sell something, maybe they'll be interested in buying it. But I never expect people to spend their hard-earned money on a burger. That's up to them and what they want to do.
Right, for sure.
I'm not angry if someone doesn't show up.
Yeah, exactly. So the other thing that I was curious about is, like, you mentioned to me before we even started recording that you have a photography background too, and I mean, I always like to say that because I have like a team, but this whole show is just me, right? So like I like to say I'm head chef and chief bottle washer at Greetings from the Garden State, and I think that's similar for you, right?
Yeah.
So how do you make sure that like you're striking that balance between actually going out and cooking the burgers like all the time, and also maintaining that presence where you're doing enough content and putting enough content out there to keep, both supported?
Right. Yeah. So I only generally cook 3 days a week, but because it's at a new location every time, there's a lot that goes into that. Anyone that's done like catering or anything knows that like cooking in a new setting every week or every day there's a lot that goes into that. So the rest of the week is kind of all the logistics behind that and all the content behind that leading up to it. So if I'm gonna do a pop-up in Montclair, weeks leading up to that, I'm in Montclair. I'm creating content in Montclair. I'm reviewing burgers in Montclair. I'm going to Paper Planes Coffee and posting about it. They're going to repost me. And it's all like, I'm not expecting anything out of it. That's just what I like to do. I like to go to a new city and explore and do all that. So, but I also think it's really important to fuel the business as well, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, 3 or 4 days a week is content, and then 3 or 4 days a week is cooking. And just like you, washing the dishes afterwards. So.
Yeah, literally. So also, when was there a moment in time where you feel like you have this like a rhythm? Because you mentioned like the first time was chaos, like because you didn't know it was the first time doing it. But between all the stuff that you do, which is significant, so respect, because that's a lot of stuff to juggle all at once. Have you felt like you've gotten into a rhythm where you can kind of, like what you're doing, it's like almost systematic at this point, and you're just rolling?
For the pop-up days and I do a lot of private events too now. For those days, they're have a pretty strict system in place where I know I'm getting up early that day and I'm prepping and I'm doing everything I need to and going through the checklist: propane, rags, apron, meat, cheese, bun, sauce, all that stuff.
Yeah.
But it's
like you just rattle it off like that.
Yeah, so because you always forget something when you're going somewhere.
Well, yeah, I'll walk downstairs and be like, shit, I forgot my camera.
Exactly.
Shit, I forgot my, all that.
So those days are pretty regimented, but the other days, that's kind of the beauty of starting your own thing, is you kind of make your own schedule, but it's also all on you to get it all done and to continue having that demand for your product, right? So if I could have just as easily those 4 days off just slept in and not created content and just watched TV all day, right? But it's like I know what those days I'm doing. What I'm doing on those days I'm not cooking are just as important as the days I am cooking. So, yeah,
absolutely.
But they're still chaotic for sure.
Oh, yeah, of course. I had one more question. I'm trying to remember what it was. And so also, this will be my last question of this segment. The reason why I asked that was because when I see certain things that you post on like your stories or whatever that you're booked, and I joked with you before that like I don't even know if you're going to be able to do this, because every time I look, it's like, oh, I'm booked until fall 2023. Filled like 4 dates in December 2024, and I'm like, Jesus, like this guy is like everywhere all the time, and his like next 3 years are booked out. So like, how does that make you feel? Like, is it like does it feel good that the effort and all that kind of stuff that you put in, that's something that like I would hope that you like doing this, that it's rewarding, because that it's like, hey, people are liking what I'm doing, it's working for me, like I'm having success, all that kind of stuff. Like take me just through like that, like being booked out that far and knowing the demand for what you do is so high, take me through like that experience, I guess.
Yeah, so the pop-ups have been so hard to get into for people because I only do a certain amount of tickets each time, and my following has grown so much that oftentimes it's like 3,000 or 4,000 people on the ticket website trying to get 200 tickets, right? So there's going to be a lot of people that don't get them.
Yeah.
So then people start asking if I would do private events in their backyard or for birthday parties or whatever it may be. So that's what people are actually booking a year out, is the private events for the most part. And then I kind of fill in the pop-ups in between there where I can.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's super gratifying. I mean, to build something from the ground up and see how far it's come, and to be able to do it full time now is like, it's huge, but it's also, it's motivating and it keeps you hungry, because people think because you're busy you can kind of just like pull back the reins. And it's like, when I get someone who books a party for 2024, like that makes me want to go like 100 times harder and faster and get more people to book 2 years out, right? So it's like, and the calls to like work with someone I've looked up to, or when a restaurant that I like love, that is someone that like I really respect, and they reach out and they're like, hey, we want to do something together, like that stuff is like super motivating to me. Like I don't get cocky about it. I try not to get too confident about it, but it's like, okay, like the people I respect are respecting what I do.
Yeah.
So it's like, yeah, it's very cool.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. I love that. All right, so that was amazing. I love that segment. But we're going to take our second break, our last break of this episode, and we'll be back to finish up. So this is Greetings from the Garden State. I'm Mike Ham. We're here in Montclair, New Jersey at Silverstream Studios with Nick LePore of Burger Buff. We'll be right back. The Mayo Performing Arts Center is the heart of arts and entertainment in Morristown, New Jersey. MPAC presents over 200 events annually and is home to an innovative children's arts education program. To see MPAC's upcoming schedule of world-class concerts, stand-up comedy, family shows, and more, head to mayoarts.org or just click the link in our show notes. Bored of going to the same park? Want to try a new local adventure? Well, then check out njspots.com, your home for finding a new spot to discover right here in New Jersey. With dozens of maps to check out, local hiking spots, family-friendly places, and seasonal suggestions, NJ Spots is waiting for you to find somewhere new to explore. That's njspots.com. All right, we're back for segment 3 of this episode of Greetings from the Garden State, our third and final segment. So we're here at Montclair, New Jersey at Silverstream Studios with Nick LePore of Burger Buff. So first segment we learned a little bit about your background. Second segment we learned all about what Burger Buff is and kind of the lifespan of it and what goes into it and everything. But one of the things that I think, so what we do in our third segment normally is talk about a community type stuff. So obviously we have New Jersey business owners or people that run nonprofits or other people that live here that do cool things, but they're all part of like a greater New Jersey community and they interact with different communities, whether it's locally, whether it's doing pop-ups at other restaurants, and working with people like that. So one of the things that I thought was interesting towards the end of the last segment when you talked about the fact that people that you've looked up to and respect are now like in turn, reciprocating that back to you.
Right.
So take me through like the benefits and the experiences that you've had working with local businesses, doing those pop-ups, doing those private events at those restaurants, and the ways that like that community has kind of grown and you've supported them and they've supported you. It's a lot. You can break it up if you want, and I'll remind you if you forget any of that long ass question.
Yeah, it started with the first coffee shop really because it was a place that I enjoyed going to and I knew about, but maybe people, I was living in Toms River at the time, Toms River didn't know about it in Point Pleasant, right? So for me to do a pop-up there, it got people in their door that maybe haven't been there before to support a local coffee shop. And I always kind of encourage people, instead of just being a number in a drive-through, go into a local coffee shop, meet people in your community.
Yeah.
So it started with the coffee shop and then turned into more and more people wanting me to do a pop-up at their place because it would gain exposure for them. It would get new people in their door and vice versa. I would pull some of their crowd, they would pull some of my crowd, right? And it's a fair, even exchange, and they're not paying me to be there. I'm not paying them to be there. It's just like two cool people doing cool things and want to work together, right?
Yeah.
I never want to impose myself on a business or be in their way or be a nuisance to them, right? So it's always about organic relationships like that. And then it turns into other stuff too, with like local coffee shop down in Tuckerton, where like we would donate part of the proceeds to different foundations that they're a part of and stuff like that. So it's about supporting local businesses and getting people in the door, and it's organic relationships with these businesses rather than people hit me up and they're like, you should do a pop-up here because of the foot traffic, or you would kill it at this thing, or you would, and it's like
people like with me.
I
It's
appreciate
like,
that, but
yeah.
it's like that's not really what I'm doing. That's not
Right.
what I'm going for. Like I don't need the foot traffic. Like that's not what I do. So
Yeah.
it's like it's more about partnering up with a restaurant that I love and they like what I'm doing. So
Yeah. You know how many times I get you should have this person on the show. You should have this person on the show. And I'm like, why? And they're like, well, they're in Jersey, or like they'll do this, or they got whatever. And I'm just like, it doesn't necessarily like work like that all the time. Like I want to
Sure.
talk to people that actually have like an interesting story.
Right.
I mean, maybe they do, but I would have to like explore that. And also like they don't do what I do, and people don't do what you do. So
Right.
it's like they get it sort of because they understand like the concept, but then it's a little bit different because they may not understand like what actually goes into everything that like you're trying to do with that.
Exactly.
I know you mentioned like the early coffee shop, like the first one.
Mm-hmm.
Have there been other businesses that have been super supportive of you and kind of what you do and making sure that they're supporting you? Because, like I think sometimes too, it may be a business may want to work with you because they know it's going to be good for their business. So it's like they're looking to take. But have there been instances, I would hope, that there are like mutual kind of, like you said before, respect, and kind of like now you're both rowing the boat in the same direction and supporting each other in a variety of ways?
Yeah, so that's all of them across the board. I haven't had a bad experience with anyone, and every place I've done a pop-up at has wanted me back for another one, which I think is a good sign.
Yeah.
But like my buddy Christian Coronado, he has a meal prep service, Healthy Meal Prep. He's kind of like my home base down in Brick, New Jersey, where he's been my best friend all my life. He's been my training partner all my life. We share so many of the same like values and views on stuff, and so I always support his business. He always supports my business, and we do a lot of cool stuff together. So like that's kind of like my main pop-up spot, and we're always promoting each other, and we've just like been really good friends through it all. So before Burger Buff and after Burger Buff. So
yeah.
And then even like just like some restaurants that I've like loved going to, and like the chefs or the owners, I like look to them for guidance and questions on stuff, whether it's like Angelica's and Seabright, Nettie's, Grand Tavern, and so many other ones. They're all
You're
awesome.
You're gonna leave somebody out. Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, it's just like, and then even like George Motes, I don't know if you're familiar with him, but he's like a huge burger guy worldwide, just like wrote books on burgers. Like he reached out to me to do a pop-up together, and that like gained me a ton of exposure, which I'm like super grateful for.
Yeah.
But it's one of those things where I just had my head down and was doing my thing, sticking to my values, and then people reach out to me.
Right.
I'm not a good salesperson, so I was never good at kind of like pitching myself.
Yeah.
I just kind of do what I do, and I hope people notice.
Yeah.
So
I love that too, because it's selling yourself also becomes a lot too.
Yes.
It's like another full-time job on top of basically the two that you already have between
Right.
the promoting and the actual like production. So looking into the future, maybe are there things that you're hoping to do with Burger Buff that may be different than the standard day-to-day that you're doing right now?
Yeah, definitely a lot of new content and stuff like that. Obviously, the most common question is, when are you going to open a spot? And if anyone has followed my page, they know I always say never. But or you should get a food truck is the most common question.
Yeah,
I get.
right.
And I appreciate that. That means there's a demand for the product, and I joke around that it's like irritating, but I always enjoy people's input and stuff like that. But I'm really interested in just growing the brand as a whole, because I know when you grow a personal brand or a brand, you can kind of go in so many different directions. If I had a storefront, I would just be glued to it. I'm not the type that would hire someone to run it.
Yeah.
I would be there every single day.
Well, I think part of the charm of what you do is that like people come and they know that you're going to cook it.
Exactly.
And
you kind of have to lose that at some point when you want to scale a business burger-wise, right? But I could scale it in other ways through content and distribution and selling the sauce, or selling a spatula, or selling merch and stuff like that, and reviewing burgers. So a big thing is, aside from people wanting to eat my burger, they want my opinion on burgers. And again, it's just my opinion. I don't say it's the holy grail.
Yeah.
I hate burgers. I hate lists that say these are the best burgers in New Jersey. It's like, says who?
Right, exactly.
One guy who probably didn't even eat half the burgers on the list, right?
Yeah, he just heard that it was good from somebody else.
Yeah. So because that's such a demand from my following, I want to continue putting out more content about other people's burgers, because I love to promote other people's burgers. And especially if you can't get my burger, I love to be able to say, hey, if you're in Montclair, try this burger. If you're in Tom's River, try this burger.
Yeah.
Because there's enough customers and there's enough people that go out to eat for everyone to eat.
Yeah,
So
plenty of sand in the sandbox. Yeah. Okay, so I want to make sure that we hit, like, social media is the place to go to get content from you, obviously, but to learn about like when the next pop-up is, when stuff's dropping, all that. So real quick, let's hit them with the social links and where people should be spending their time to make sure that they know about you.
Yeah, so Instagram's the best spot still. Definitely working on going to other platforms more, putting more attention. I am on Facebook, but Instagram, burger.buff. is the page, and I announce my pop-ups about a week ahead of time, and drop the link to the tickets about a week ahead of time, so you can fight the crowd for a ticket. I always prefer people to fight for a ticket at the comfort of their home or on their phone, rather than coming out to a spot and then not getting what they want and having to go home. So,
Right.
as much as people complain about it, I'd rather you miss out on it from the not having to show up, wait 2 hours, and then not get it, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, yeah.
That way, you don't make the trip.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
so,
I think when I came to the one pop-up that you did, I think we drove like an hour to get there.
Right, but you saw it was like super smooth process. You walk up, the burger's
Boom,
ready
bag's
at
right
the time.
there, you take it, you're good.
Exactly.
So that's how it works. Like you say that a pop-up's coming or like a link's coming, and I guess the link would be the bio link, and then boom, you just go for it.
Yep, takes you to the ticket website, and then you kind of pick what time you want to pick up your burger, and that's it.
Awesome.
Super simple.
Awesome. All right. Well, this was great. So I'll make sure that I put, obviously, the social handles in the show notes. That way people can go and check it out and all that kind of stuff.
Awesome.
But I really appreciate you coming up to Montclair to do this with us today. And this was great. Learn a little bit more about your story and kind of what goes into the whole process. It's, it's interesting because it's so mobile and like kind of diverse and like all the stuff that you do, and knowing now all the stuff that actually goes into this is more than just like, hey, I make burgers, like all that kind of stuff. So I think it was awesome to learn, and I really appreciate you coming on.
So you mean you don't just sit down and record and then go home and then you're done?
Actually, yes.
You mean you do other stuff?
Yeah, I do other stuff. Yeah,
you
right.
mean you just cook for 3 hours? You just cook burgers for 3 hours?
Yeah,
and go home?
that honestly would be pretty good.
Yeah.
Like if I could just sit here and do this and just like give it to somebody to do, that'd be great. But I also have like that kind of like I need it done like a certain way type deal. Yeah. And all that, but that's a story for another day. But again, so I appreciate it. Thank you for coming on, and thank you to the guys here at Silverstream Studios for hosting us today. So this has been Greetings from the Garden State. I'm Mike Ham. We were here in Montclair, New Jersey at Silverstream Studios with Nick LePore of Burger Buff. Thank you for listening, and we will catch you next time.